At first it was more about getting access to U.S. companies and the government. Let's start with the government. Let's get a hold of government secrets. And so government security is well far advanced, and it's always been advanced for that reason, to protect the citizens and to protect our nation. But then those adversaries also started targeting corporations for financial gain.
Wow.
So some of it's geopolitical, depending on the nature of the industry that they're targeting, but oftentimes it's financially motivated type of tax.
Welcome to the BOOMLENNIAL podcast, hosted by the dynamic duo cousins, Chee and Dee. This podcast celebrates the synergy between a millennial and a baby boomer, showcasing the fusion of generational leadership, insights, and real-life experiences.
We'll unveil strategies not to just survive, but thrive as leaders in an ever-evolving world. Let's ignite the transformation we inspire to see in ourselves, our teams, and our businesses. Let's get started.
Hello, and welcome to another exciting episode of the BOOMLENNIAL podcast, your go-to podcast for entrepreneurship and leadership insight. I'm Chee.
And I'm Dee. And today we're going to be talking about cybersecurity and its impact on your businesses.
So, Dee, before we get started, I understand that you've been traveling abroad. Can you share with our listeners and our viewers where you've been and what was the occasion?
So the occasion was a 40th girlfriend's trip around Europe. So I was on the first leg of the tour. Mm-hmm. We visited the south of France, which is Nice.
Wow.
And we also visited Barcelona, Spain.
Ooh.
So when I tell you amazing, so the south of France is beautiful views of the Mediterranean, plenty of shopping, sunshine, wine. We stayed in a traditional French chateau. It was a huge house. It was just beautiful, very relaxing.
Wonderful.
And the second leg of the trip, Barcelona, of course, your typical sort of European older city with Spanish culture.
I was going to say, is it typical? Barcelona is like a lot of architecture.
It is a lot of architecture. I think, just the old cobblestone streets and some of the traditional Spanish influence, those kind of things. So it was really nice. We got to see a few of the sites. And it was just, all in all, great laughs, great times, great memories. So I'm glad to be back. So here I am with you two.
Okay. Well, I am so excited that you're back. And as you hear, you've probably heard an extra voice today. So we are so excited because we have a special guest with us. So Dee, if you don't mind, please introduce to our viewers our wonderful guest.
So I am so excited to have Miss Rainey Bridges today.
Woo!
She is our cybersecurity expert and consultant. I've known Rainey for over 15 years. She was a neighbor of mine, as well as she's one of my sorority sisters from Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. Woo, woo.
Yes, see.
And so I'm happy to have her here today. She's a great sister of mine, and she's a wonderful professional. So I'm hoping that she'll share some great cybersecurity tips with us today.
Yeah, glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. I'm already thinking of you as God's messenger.
You're right. Honestly, I mean, that's what keeps me going every day is understanding the importance of my role in the industry.
Okay.
So I feel like now I'm doing God's work, but yes.
Awesome.
Good. And you have a passion for it, and you've been doing it how long?
Gosh, I've been in cybersecurity for almost 15 years.
Wow.
So I started my career as an IT auditor. So around the time of Sarbanes-Oxley, I was recruited out of LSU. So they were looking for external auditors, and I had an MIS degree. And so that was kind of my foundation in IT and understanding risk and controls and how it all ties together when it comes to protecting organizations.
Okay.
And I think through those audits, I would see systemic issues around security. So this is before we knew about China and Russia being advanced persistent threats. This is just good best practices, good IT practices. So when I saw that privileged accounts and a lot of configurations were just misconfigured in a lot of organizations, and when I say a lot, I mean, it was a systemic problem.
Okay.
That kind of piqued my interest in security. So that's kind of how it started.
Okay.
And then from there, I took the leap and applied for an incident response role. for a large utilities company.
Okay.
And I did that for about 2 years. And it's a sacrifice because the threat actors and our adversaries, they attack when our guards are down. So weekends, holidays, that's when we're most under attack. That's when we're most vulnerable. So I did that for 2 years, and then I've been in cybersecurity ever since. So
wow, that's a great story.
That really
so
is.
For our listeners, kind of level set, what is like cybersecurity?
Right.
Yeah.
At its baseline level.
Yeah.
Yes.
So cybersecurity, the way I think about it is like protecting our digital world,
Okay.
protecting our digital assets.
Okay.
So the same way in a physical sense, you have a home, you make sure your doors are locked before you leave. You may have a fence around your house.
Okay.
You may have cameras, right? So that's in a physical world. In a digital world, you want to have strong passwords. You want to make sure you have multi-factor authentication, which we'll get into a little bit more in a minute. But you want to make sure you have those protections in place to protect your digital identity and your digital assets. So that's cybersecurity.
Okay.
Wow.
Wow.
Well, thank you for that.
Yeah.
So, Rainey, how has the landscape of cybersecurity threats evolved over the past few years, and what new threats should we be aware of?
Yes. So when I think about when I started in 2012, we knew about, like I said, nation states. So I won't call out any specific countries, but you guys know what countries I'm referring to. We knew about nation states. We knew that they had advanced tactics as far as how they would attack U.S. companies. The company that I work for, by the way, I didn't give my disclaimer. These are my views and not the views of my company.
Okay.
So now that we've gotten that out the way.
Yeah.
So we'll make sure we add that to the tagline.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So the research that's been done on what the motivations are, I think over time, the motivations have changed. At first, it was more about getting access to U.S. companies and the government. Let's start with the government. Let's get a hold of government secrets. And so government security is well far advanced, and it's always been advanced for that reason, to protect the citizens and to protect our nation. But then those adversaries also started targeting corporations for financial gain.
Wow.
So some of it's geopolitical, depending on the nature of the industry that they're targeting, but oftentimes it's financially motivated type of attacks. And so you mentioned, how has the threat landscape changed? I think with COVID, we started to see an uptick in extortion.
Really?
So you guys are probably familiar with ransomware attacks, right?
Correct.
You hear about
yes.
those on the news.
Definitely.
All the time. Well, they were happening before it even got mainstream media attention. We knew
sure.
about ransomware attacks. And I spent a lot of time during COVID working on ransomware remediation. So after clients got hit, I would come in, help them project manage their recovery and remediation efforts. Some of those were successful, and I'll be honest, some of them were unsuccessful because these attack groups and the level of sophistication that they use, they create back doors after they create their initial attack. So while we may think that we've closed all the back doors, we've, implemented the controls and security measures, they will have another back door that they come back into and attack again.
Oh my God.
Wow.
And so our company, I will say, we're really good about, sophistication as far as tracking the tactics, techniques, and protocols that they use. But again, the threat landscape is always changing, constantly changing. Yes.
Wow.
And everything is so digital now. So it's like, how do you get away from all of your information not being digitalized?
Oh, no, I think nobody's off limits.
Okay.
I'm not off limits.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I think about Equifax and a lot of breaches, I'm like, that's my data too. Right.
Wow. That's amazing. So, I guess, could you share some best practices for individuals and organizations to protect themselves against those cyber attacks that you mentioned?
Yeah, so there are a couple of things that I feel like if you do these top 3 or 4 things, you can protect probably 90% of your digital assets.
Okay.
So I know passwords. Everybody knows about strong passwords, long passwords. A lot of people are just over it. They're like, I have to have a different password for every website, every account. But no, let's talk about it. So like, for example, on your iPhone, which I have both. I have an Android and an iPhone. You probably have a password manager on your iPhone. Do you use yours? You use your password manager for like strong passwords? Do you let it auto-generate your passwords?
No, I never do it. I never let it auto-generate.
Okay. So we're gonna talk about this without exposing any any vulnerabilities that you may have.
Okay.
But that's something that I encourage. You know, there's a strong password generator on your iPhone. Like whenever you sign up for a new account, use that, right? It may seem like an inconvenience because if you log in from a different device, you're like, oh, snap, I got to go back and look at my password on your phone. I think it's better than reusing the same password. And I'll tell you why. Pull out your phone.
Okay.
We'll do a little activity.
Okay.
So let's take a look at in your settings.
Mm-hmm.
If you go to passwords.
Okay. Passwords.
Mm-hmm.
All right. When you have that up, say amen.
Amen.
Oh, I see. Okay. Amen.
All right. At the very top, it says security recommendations.
Mm-hmm.
And it also gives you a number.
It does.
I won't ask you what your number is, but this is the number of websites that have been compromised with your credentials. So if you use the same password over and over again, that password is on the dark web and it's discoverable by attackers. And so when you hear about like people's Facebooks getting hacked, because the information is already available to them, they just take the password from the dark web and they try it across all your accounts. So that's how they're getting into social media. That's how they're getting into even bank accounts.
Wow.
So that's why it's smart to use a different password on all your accounts.
Okay, so if mine says 0, am I a little
Oh,
safe?
yes!
Okay.
Good job. Good job. That's fantastic. So you
Okay.
use a different password.
Not
for the
really.
most part. Okay.
Well, sort of. I use, how can I say, variations of it. Like I may go at 22, or then I'll go 23 every now and then, or something. Or I'll add a little something.
Yep.
To
some different special characters.
Right.
That's fair enough.
Okay.
I mean, that's fair.
Okay.
Now, on top of that, I'm not going to ask your
number.
No.
Can I tell you?
Yeah. Do you have a number?
I have a number.
What was I
216.
I was thinking that was
All right, listen, I'm changing all my passwords tonight. Okay. So don't try to find that. Okay.
Oh my gosh, because we need you, D.
And what we don't want to do is go in like reactive mode, where now we're trying to get your identity recovered. So I think you got some homework to do, especially before you publish this.
Wow. And I just wanted to ask you this, Rainey. Did you happen to see the movie The Beekeeper?
No, I haven't. Tell me about it.
Okay. Well, it was, did you see it, D?
I did.
And it was a movie that Felicia Rashad starred in. And she was like the manager of some type of fund, right? Mm-hmm. And she got this alert up on her computer, right? That she was in, and then said, call me or something. And then these people, they had a center set up that
and they remoted
into her computer and
wiped it.
And basically wiped it out. But she did get a prompting, like her daughter had set everything up, and she knew not to give somebody your password or whatever.
Yeah.
But they were so convincing, like, oh my gosh, I just wired $50,000 to you. It was supposed to be $5,000. Yeah. I'm going to get fired. And they were just so preying on her empathetic, emotion, that she just said, okay, no, I don't want you to get fired, and gave them a code, and then they wiped her out instantly.
Yeah. And that's exactly how attackers take advantage of people. They know your vulnerabilities and your weaknesses. Case in point, social media. Okay. If you have a public profile, you're just posting for, you think, friends and families, right? But someone who's genuinely interested in you and going after your assets, they're going to study your behavior on social media. So they're going to know the things you like. They're going to know the things you're passionate about. So then when they find your email, you'll start getting emails about the things that you enjoy. If there's something really special to you, they'll email you about that. And that's how they compromise or exploit your vulnerabilities. Wow. So when you think about phishing emails, they're becoming more and more sophisticated, especially with the use of AI. Oh, yeah. So it's called reconnaissance when, let's say, a scammer, I'm talking about threat actors, nation states, but there's even scammers when it comes to consumers. They are doing their research on individuals, find out what you like, and then they use AI to craft emails that would, be attractive for you, to you.
Wow.
Right? So something that you would actually read, something you would respond to. And then that's how they're getting people from a phishing perspective now. So we all know not to click the link.
Right.
You're not expecting the email. If it looks suspicious, it probably is suspicious.
Okay.
But they're using AI to make it more realistic and more attractive for you to click.
Wow, nice.
So, Rainey, do you have any data as far as like, I don't know how many people get compromised or something that you might want to share with us?
I don't know, like millions, right? Oh. And I'm saying that because every day, I mean, someone is getting compromised. When I think about corporations, just multiple corporations are getting hit every day, right? So it's all about your defenses and mitigating the risk once you are compromised. So I hate to sound cliche, but we tell our clients all the time, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. Wow. So when it happens, you don't want that person to get too far into your world, too far into your network, too far into your social media, right? So if you're one of those people who reuse your password, do you want to have multi-factor authentication? Okay. So I think many people already have it set up, especially with your bank. So banks automatically do a verification. They send it to your SMS, through SMS text, or to your email, right? But then on the social media side, you have to be proactive about turning on and enabling that setting. Because if you don't, then it's just your password.
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah. And you were mentioning, so you had a 1, 2, 3 step way to protect yourself. What was the second and the third?
Yeah. So we talked about strong passwords,
right,
and not reusing the same password. Right. So you can use the password manager on your phone, or you can actually subscribe to a password manager application. So I'm tool agnostic. I won't recommend any particular tool, but there are tools available. Password management. Just make sure that they're reputable. Do your research, and then make sure it's a reputable tool. But you can also keep all your passwords there. And it's good for families as well to kind of share passwords if you need to, if there's an emergency. So I do encourage that as well. Okay. And so, especially you, D, in this case. So we talked about passwords. We talked about multi-factor authentication or two-factor authentication. If we take it a step further, you could use an authenticator app that changes the code every 60 seconds. So whenever you authenticate with a different code that's generated through an authenticator app. And that's much safer than text message verification. Because now you guys are probably familiar with like SMS phishing or SIM swaps.
Because they can clone your SIM.
Yeah, SIM swaps. Wow. So SIM swaps, they can intercept that code and then get into your account.
Wow.
So, yeah. That's just a few examples, right?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So I would say from an enterprise perspective and for corporations, it's even more sophisticated where they're doing social engineering, and it's now US speaking individuals who can clone voices using AI of an employee or even a leader in the organization. Wow. Call the help desk and say, hey, I'm locked out of my account, need my password reset. And because of the person's level in the organization role in the organization, they'll reset the password and completely hand it over to the attackers. And so social engineering is now a big trend that we're seeing.
Wow.
So speaking of that on the enterprise level, the voice verification, because I know some companies are starting to do that. Are you saying do not do voice? What's your professional stance on that?
Yeah. Again, most things are circumventable, right? So I like voice validation, but I think there should be another step in addition to that. Okay. So once you get on the line with them, they should still ask questions, like give us, your questions. So the answers to your security questions. Right. And I always tell people, when it comes to security questions, you don't want to answer those correctly. So you want to come up with an answer that's not searchable on the internet, that's not obvious. So your high school, when it asks, what high school did you attend? You have a different high school.
Than what the one you...
Yeah, when it asks what city you're born in, you have a different city that you use.
Okay,
keep those in
it's funny
pocket.
That you should say that because my sister's in cybersecurity, right? So now we're talking about an 80-year-old aunt that she's talking to, and so she was trying to help her come up with a password, and she said, well, what's your third grade teacher's name? And she remembered that, and so she said, and she says, well, don't say that name because that maybe other people can do it, so let's come up with another name. And she just looked like the deer. She had this stare like, I'm like,
yes,
Aunt
she's
Bonnie.
80.
She can't remember.
Right.
So, but I understand what you were saying, but when you're knowing who you're talking to, I don't know.
Yeah. And so I mentioned the password managers. They actually have sections within the app where you can keep that information. And so it's in a password vault when you think about it. So all you need is a master password to get into your vault. And then you have access to your passwords, your questions to the security, well, your answers to the security questions.
Okay. I actually like that because that was going to be one of my questions, because I actually had a family member that lost someone and they had a hard time, like they needed to know those passwords.
Right.
And so I actually went to a seminar and was saying that someone needs to know how to get to the passwords, because, like I said, if in event of a death, someone passes, so that you can get in and shut down their Facebook pages or, close down different things. So you said it's called a vault?
A password manager.
Okay.
Yeah, it operates as a vault. That's what I was trying to describe, and that you only need to know one master password to get into the vault where you have all of your passwords stored.
And so let's just say my son is like the beneficiary of most of my things. He and we could share that manager?
You can.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
You can share with a family member.
Cool. Yep, that's cool. So, now, what about keeping your passwords on a note on your phone or?
I wouldn't do it. I don't encourage it, but I think even better, you have the iOS feature that can do it for you.
Now, does these password management tools, do they automatically update when you make changes to a password, or you have to manually go in and update it?
Yes, they can. So like it may detect that you're changing a password to a site, and so it'll prompt you and say, would you like to save this password to your password manager? It gives you that option.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's good.
Well, that is good to know. Well, I definitely want to look into that. That's a nugget that I definitely appreciate.
For sure.
So in my past life, I was an auto insurance claims adjuster with Allstate. And I used to get, 2, 3, 4 car accidents on my desk. I also would get a lot of backing claims, like in the Walmart parking lot. So what that made me sort of a little over the top when I'm in the car with family and friends. Like, don't drive too close, especially when the roads are, slippery. Or I really strongly encourage everybody to always back in, right?
Yeah.
But it drove my family bonkers, because my son will literally say, okay, Mom, if you want me to drive, I don't want to be like one of your people that you think we're going to have an accident, okay?
Right.
So I'm saying all that to say, being that you see so many threats and so many bad things that's happening in the computer, how do you temper that so that you're not like seen as paranoid or over the top by your family or friends?
Yeah, and even desensitized, right? Because I know that I'm usually heads down helping clients and helping them put up their defenses and implement controls and security measures. So a lot of times I'll miss, current events and hearing about other companies that are getting hacked because I'm not working on those incidents. But, one thing I think that I have to remind myself of is that there's a lot of evil in this world. I think a recent report from our company, it said 4,000 threat actor groups are currently being tracked and monitored. So when you think about that, that's 4,000 threat actor groups. That does not count the number of adversaries that are included in those groups worldwide, right? So we're talking about grand scale threat actor groups. These are state funded threat actors. So you know how we get up, get dressed, and go into work? Well, in other countries, there are state-sponsored groups that do the same thing. They get dressed, go into work, and their sole purpose is to compromise a company.
Right.
That's their sole goal for the day. That's their job. They get paid to do that.
That sounds like the scene from the movie that you just...
Yeah, they get paid to do that.
Yes.
And so what we're seeing is that these threat groups are working together. And so when I say multifaceted extortion, you may have one threat group that will compromise the credentials in an organization, sell it on the dark web to another threat actor group who moves forward with encrypting their systems and then asking for money. So when you hear about 20 million in demands or even more, you've seen higher in demand, ransom demands, that's another threat actor group.
Wow.
And so, the dark web is a pretty scary place.
That's pretty scary.
Wow.
Oh my gosh.
Yes.
Wow.
Well, you gave me some homework today.
Yeah. But I do want to answer your question. How do I stay grounded?
Yes.
understanding my purpose. My purpose is to not only help companies protect our data, protect their data, but I also try to help consumers and individuals like you and even myself, right? Protect our families and our identities. And so understanding that I have a greater purpose. You mentioned I'm God's messenger.
Yes.
Because it's spiritual.
Okay.
It's spiritual for me. When you recognize the amount of evil that exists in the world.
Yeah. Right.
You have to look at it through a different lens.
I know. But I like to think there's a lot of good too still.
There is a lot of good in the world. Yeah. And so I think one of the good things is that, knowing that I'm making a difference every day is what keeps me going. One thing I wish that we had, though, is student loan forgiveness. Like, I just feel like cybersecurity is an essential role. Like, we're essential.
Oh, right.
I mean, the teachers, I don't want to downplay the role of teachers. Teachers are unsung heroes. I get it. But I feel like we're kind of in that category. Yeah. So we should be considered for student loan.
I can jump on that quest. Okay. So if you're listening and you have any power out there for student loan forgiveness, consider our cybersecurity subject matters.
Thank you. Yes, email your senators, email your representatives.
Right.
Thank you.
Right.
All righty.
Well, thank you so much. Chee, do you know what that sound is? It's time for our ATL segment, Ask the Leaders.
Okay. Is this when I do pro bono consulting advice?
Basically. So what we would like for you to do is to grab our box.
I'm going to be nice and grab it for her.
Okay.
So this is called our profit box.
Interesting. Okay.
Profits because business make profits.
Yeah. If it don't make dollars, it don't make sense.
There you go.
I'm gonna pull
so
this
if you'll be nice enough to grab one of the questions for me, and I will read it to you.
Sure thing.
And let's see what this says. Okay. This is from a viewer from Connie from Palm Beach, Florida. Dear Chee and Dee, I am a small business owner, and I host my information on various Google sites. What advice do you have to keep my employees' information secure? And does that require me to use a paid service? If so, do you have any recommendations? So, Rainey, would you delight us and answer this question, please?
Sure. So I'm glad that security is a priority for her business.
Absolutely.
And recognizing keeping her customers' information safe, that's a priority. So that's good to hear. A couple of things that come to mind. She's in Google sites, so she's in good hands, wink, wink. But I would say, in any platform, you want to make sure that information is accessible to only the individuals and employees in your company that are authorized to have that information. A lot of cases, if it's stored, let's say in a cloud environment, for example, there is some responsibility on the cloud host that they're supposed to have. But then also on your side, let's say it's a website or developer that you've hired, it's also making sure that developer is only maintaining the data in the hosted site, not downloading it locally, not sending data through email. So really establishing those guidelines. This is how I want to manage the data. And I would say websites like CISA.gov, I think they give great advice for small businesses on, protections they can put in place for protecting like PII, personally identifiable information. So I think getting the guidelines from there, a reputable site like that, and then communicating it to anyone who's working on your business, that these are the guidelines that you want to follow and ensuring they follow those.
Okay.
Nice.
That's awesome. Before I did leave corporate America, I was in organizational development, and we were the arm that housed all of the training aspects of the company. And one of the modules that our employees had to take every year was cybersecurity. So that was, and it was always huge. Amazing how, little things that I think the last one I attended was about the voice authentication and still having a step 2 as well.
Yeah, that's huge. Even as a consultant, we work with IT teams to implement, security measures. But then your users are the weakest link. All it takes is one user to click that link. Oh, yes. And then now you're under attack. So.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and it reminds me of, running my business. We used to use a lot of shared apps. So DocuSign, Dropbox, Google Drive, things like that. And so just a few tools that we used to house employee, data on. And I always was concerned as the owner that none of our data was breached because there were, social security numbers, birth dates, things like that for hiring and IRS documentation. So it's amazing how many different apps and tools. And I know for me, I'm always skeptical about downloading
Absolutely.
apps. I just,
like DocuSign, any of those systems, when I get a request for that, I'm talking to the person on the phone. I pick up the phone and say, hey, did you intend to send me this? I wasn't expecting it. Usually I'm expecting it though. So that's kind of my rule of thumb when it comes to clicking on anything.
Yeah. And yes, because as real estate agents, we use DocuSign or .loop, but generally we're letting our clients know,
it's coming.
That it's coming. So that certainly makes sense. Good.
Okay. Good. Yeah. Well, thanks. That was a great question. Don't you think, Chee?
Oh my gosh. Awesome. Awesome question.
I guess, Rainey, before we end the show, is there any last words you'd like to leave? Any thoughts for our viewers?
Yeah, so I mentioned a couple of tips around, keeping yourself safe, keeping your family safe. The one thing I didn't mention was software updates. And so that was the third tip that I had.
Oh, okay.
And so even iOS, right? You get a new iOS update every few months or so. You have two types of thoughts. You have some people who are like, I don't download the newest iOS because I want them to work out the kinks. And that's fine. But those updates have security updates as well. So I also encourage people to eventually download, keep your iOS up to date, even your laptops, make sure you have the latest operating system updates because it has patches to help protect yourself. So all in all, if you're looking for more tips, I mentioned CISA.gov is a good resource, not only for small businesses, but also for individuals. There's good information, safety information there. And then, I hope this has been helpful.
Can you spell CISA.gov?
Yeah, it's CISA.gov. And so that's like the Cyber Infrastructure and Security Agency. So
wonderful.
CISA.gov.
Beautiful.
Great.
Really
thank
appreciate
you.
that.
Yeah,
so for our viewers, remember, if you have a business or leadership related question, please email your question to Chee and D. So CHEEANDEE@gmail.com. And your question may get selected to be read on a future episode. Also, please subscribe. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel at BOOMLENNIAL Podcast and follow us on all social media platforms. We're going to start running some ads and some fun things, giving away some books and some resources like cybersecurity. So please subscribe to us on all social media channels.
Yes. Wow. Well, Dee, this brings us to the end of another exciting episode. Rainey, we are truly appreciative of you being here with us today. Let's give a hand for our special guest, Rainey.
Thanks.
Awesome, but great information, and we really appreciate that. So you all take that serious. Protect yourselves, okay? Change those passwords so you can have a 0 like me.
That's something to be proud of.
Thank you. Like I said, my sister's cybersecurity. So sister, if you're watching, you should be proud of me, okay? Yay. Anywho, remember, our episode drops on every second and fourth Tuesdays at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And that's BOOMLENNIAL Podcast, BOOMLENNIAL. Got it? Okay. Now, please join us next time for our upcoming episode entitled Keys to Success in Real Estate and Relationships.
Until next time, shine bright and do business right. See you soon.